ain't got no boundaries to hold me back. Boundaries is what I lack. Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Conflation Station. Hop on board the next train out, and let's take a ride to a place where anything's possible.
Hello and welcome to the Conflation Station. My name is Hugo Yorway and I'll be your tour guide for today's podcast, including political commentary, conspiracy theories, and some cool music from the Electric Glove Orchestra. At the Conflation Station, our team of creative writers and novice journalists combine elements of irony, satire, and pure absurdity to create political commentary and homespun conflated conspiracy theories taken from today's news headlines. In the first segment of our show, known as the 14th Circuit, or what I like to call the Court of Public Opinion, renowned raconteur, the Reverend Rusty Stubblefield, shares his unfiltered and unhinged views about America's constitutional crisis. His topic this week is booze and the U.S. Constitution. Rusty, the microphone is all yours.
Well, thank you, Hugo. In these here United States, people loves to drink. They'll drink anything they can get their paws on. It don't matter what they drink or if it's good or bad for them. As long as it comes from a bottle or a can, people will drink it. They'll drink sody pop, diet sody pop, sugar-free, caffeine-free. They'll drink beer, light beer, non-alcoholic beer. Now, how's that for an oxymoron? Spring water, mineral water, carbonated water, flavored water, smart water, tea, hard tea, Gatorade. Now, what kind of aid does a gator need anyway? They'll drink energy-promoting drinks with names like Red Bull, Monster, Rockstar, Amp, and Full Throttle. And they'll drink coffee, gallons of it. Some of the names of these newfangled coffee drinks are so hard to pronounce, you'll need a degree in linguistics just to say them. Drinking in this here US of A is a national pastime. Now, there was a time when lawmakers took to regulating what we drink, but that time is long gone. There was a time when our lawmakers went so far as outlawing certain types of beverages, namely the intoxicating kind, liquor. And they went so far as amending that their Constitution to do it. Can you believe that shit? Amending the Constitution to prohibit you and me from having a beer after work and a cocktail or two on the weekend? This ain't no work of fiction. This really happened. You see, in 1919, Congress ratified the 19th Amendment of our good old Constitution to prohibit the consumption of alcohol in these here United States. By the way, in just a little over 100 years, that Constitution was so broke, they had to fix her up nearly 20 times. The 19th Amendment states, and I quote, "The manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States, and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof, for beverage purpose is strictly prohibited." End quote. Now, how's that for some constitutional crap? Just saying those words makes me want to have a beer to wash the taste of them right out of my mouth. Anyway, there you have it. After this amendment went on the books, all hell broke loose in these here United States. Now, let's put this here amendment into context. This amendment was a percolating right around the same time the women's rights movement was a-getting started. Men was spending a lot of time at their local saloons, drinking an awful lot of liquor and becoming so drunk that when they came home, they'd be beating and abusing their wives, children, and girlfriends. I reckon that's why they called the women's movement suffrage, because a lot of women were suffering at the hands of the men in their lives. So women from across the nation banded together and started the temperance movement. The purpose of this movement was to get men to hold back their tempers, and the best way to do that was to get them to stop coming home drunk. Did you ever hear of that woman, Susan B. Anthony? She was one of them there leaders of that there temperance movement. And for that, she got a picture of a pretty little face on a dollar coin. Heck, have you ever seen a Susan B. Anthony dollar? Anyways, the year 1919 was right after that World War I ended. You know, the war to end all wars. Tell that to the fellers fighting in Iran, Israel, the Ukraine, and Russia today. Lots of men was killed, and those that survived the war came home and did a lot of partying. Now, can you imagine putting a constitutional amendment in place to stop those doughboys? That's what they called the American soldiers who fought in World War I. To stop those doughboys who defended our country from having a beer or a whiskey? Like I said, all hell broke loose. So people started protesting. Some folks protested by producing intoxicating alcohol illegally. And man, was there big profit to be made from doing that. Now, can you imagine that people protested by making their own alcohol? I can, because if you remember in this here US of A, protesting is American as apple pie. But this here ain't no apple pie. It was booze. At the time, people was making gin in their own bathtubs, and the moonshiners in the backwoods of Kentucky, well, they kept on doing what they was doing until the feds, you know, the FBI, came after them to shut them down. Like I said, after World War I was over, people was in a partying mood, and in the 1920s, the economy was booming, not like today. Folks had money, and with a desire to celebrate, you couldn't stop them from drinking booze even if you made it illegal. So clubs called speakeasies sprung up in the big cities. These were places run by mobsters and gangsters where you could go to drink with no one knowing. That was until the joint got raided by the local police. But those mobsters, they was smart, and they was in cahoots with the local police, paying them off so they'd keep their big mouths shut. That's when the feds got involved and sent out the FBI to enforce the no drinking laws. During this time, people was bootlegging booze illegally left and right, and people was actually being murdered because of the enactment of that there 18th Amendment. You ever heard of mobs like Murderers Incorporated or gangsters like Al Capone? These guys make the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers look like choir boys. By the way, I hear that President Trump takes a real liking to that feller Al Capone. Now, I've been going on for quite some time on this here topic, so let me wrap things up for you. In 1933, more than 20 years after Prohibition, the ban on booze, was enacted in the US of A, our dumbass lawmakers finally recognized their own stupidity and proposed repealing that their 18th Amendment and came up with the 21st Amendment, which states, and I quote, "The 18th article of the amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed." Now, how simple was that? These motherfuckers screwed up this here country for 13 freaking years and finally came to the realization that they was wrong. But don't you think for 1 minute that these sleazeball attorneys who masqueraded as lawmakers were actually lawbreakers themselves who made plenty of profit off of that there 18th Amendment? My question is, if repealing the 18th Amendment was possible, then why ain't we repealing some of those other constitutional amendments like that their Second Amendment today? That their Second Amendment is a vestige of the past and serves no legitimate purpose today. Unfortunately, because of that Second Amendment, good and God-fearing people like you and me wind up being killed. I'll bet you sure as the noses on your pretty little faces that before he's done with his second term in office, that Trump feller will be proposing to his Republican crony Congress that they repeal one of them their constitutional amendments. I think it's going to be the 22nd Amendment, you know, the one that limits a president to 2 terms in office. As I say at the end of each of my weekly sermons, if you and me put our pretty little heads together, we may still be able to figure out how to get this here US of A back on track. Thank y'all for listening.
Rusty Stubblefield is an unemployed certified auto mechanic and a deacon at the Church of Our Lady of Original Sin. And now it's time for a brief musical interlude featuring a song written by E. Dude X, sung by the Reverend Rusty Stubblefield, and performed by the world-renowned Electric Glove Orchestra. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with this week's Conflated Conspiracy Theories.
Think you got a problem? A problem that won't quit? I'll give you a problem in a pile of shit. Think you got a problem? A problem that won't quit? I'll give you a problem in a pile of shit. And a pile of shit. One big pile of shit. And a pile of shit. One big pile of shit. Think you got a problem that won't quit? I'll give you a problem in a pile of shit.
Thank you, Rusty E. Dude and the Electric Love Orchestra for sharing that heartwarming rendition entitled Pile of Shit, available online at Bearberry Path Music. In our next segment of the podcast, we'll be sharing various homegrown conspiracy theories that have been developed by our staff of creative writers and novice journalists who believe first and foremost that at the Conflation Station, anything is possible. We invite you, our listeners, to share your own homegrown conspiracy theories by sending an email to bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com. That's bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com, and place the words conspiracy theory in the subject line. Today, we will be turning our attention to conflated conspiracy theories that focus on the Ayatollah's visit to the White House and national holidays. Notwithstanding the purported ceasefire agreement reached between Iran and Israel, according to information obtained by our team of investigative reporters, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu are just waiting to restart missile attacks on each other's countries. In spite of what has been reported by President Trump's team as the complete obliteration of Iran's nuclear weapons stockpile, Iran's aging Ayatollah lavished praise on President Trump for the attacks on his country, saying, and I quote, "Trump is an absolute moron, an embarrassment to his country, an unscrupulous and evil person. But as a dictator myself, I recognize he does have one redeeming quality I admire. He's got a set of gigantic balls." End quote. Khamenei elaborated by saying that Trump will be remembered as one of the greatest dictators of modern times. Khamenei indicated that while he admires Germany's Adolf Hitler, Italy's Benito Mussolini, Russia's Vladimir Putin, and China's Xi Jinping, after his country was bombed by the United States, President Donald J. Trump moved to the top of his list. Reflecting on Trump's leadership style, Khamenei praised President Trump, saying, and I quote, "Trump has filled cabinet positions with loyalist sycophants. He controls all three branches of the U.S. government. He stacked the courts in his favor. He's intimidated the mass media. He controls the military. He controls the country's education system. He scapegoats and persecutes entire classes of people, foreign and domestic. He's neutralized his political rivals, and he's ignited the fervor of extreme nationalism in his countrymen. He has also achieved unparalleled success as a cult figure. As a dictator, President Trump is in a class by himself, a truly great man of power, an authoritarian without peer." End quote. Upon learning of Khamenei's high praise for him, Trump personally reached out to Khamenei and invited him to spend 2 weeks at the White House to get a taste of how he, Trump, operates firsthand. Khamenei eagerly accepted Trump's offer. Khamenei's itinerary will be as follows. Under a dome of complete secrecy, when Khamenei arrives, he will be chauffeured directly to the White House in the president's armored vehicle known as the Beast, and will have a meet and greet with Trump, his wife Melania, and his bitch J.D. Vance. Khamenei will then be taken to the Oval Office and will be allowed to sit behind the resolute desk amidst all the trappings of the U.S. presidency. Khamenei will then be gifted a replica of the B-2 bomber used in Operation Midnight Hammer. In addition, Khamenei will also receive a gold-plated replica of the Bunker Buster bomb used in the attack. The replica will be autographed by Trump, When asked by staff members if he would like the model signed by AutoPen, Trump responded, and I quote, "I've already given him the real bomb. He deserves my real signature," end quote. In commenting on gifting the replica of the B-52 bomber to Khomeini, Trump also said, quote, "When I went to Qatar, they gave me a plane. That's just how the Arabs exchange favors." After the autographing ceremony, Trump and Khomeini will adjourn for a round of private negotiations to discuss the possibility of converting the 3 bomb sites into Trump International resort properties. When asked about the potential deal, Trump said, quote, "Now that we've already broken ground for construction, which by the way has saved us lots of money, we can move forward with building a brand new luxury resort and casino, complete with an underground shopping mall there. The resort will be the only resort ever built on a reclaimed nuclear testing facility." Trump proposed naming the resort's nightclub Trump's Midnight Hammer. In a readout from a conversation between Trump and Khomeini to schedule the meeting, in a candid moment, Trump told Khomeini that, although he's had much good fortune in his life, as President of the United States, he is constantly looking over his shoulder for fear that danger might overtake him at any moment. Trump said, and I quote, "Whether it's a jealous, uninformed cabinet advisor, a slanderous rumor, an impeachment hearing, criminal allegations, an attack from an enemy country, a poor presidential decision reported by the fake news, an assassination attempt, an insurrection, a school shooting, bombs dropping, casualties of war, natural disasters, or anything else, I have to constantly cover my ass," end quote. The readout showed that while listening to President Trump speak about his constant anxiety, Khomeini listened stoically and frequently stroked his beard. During his stay at the White House, Khomeini will spend the night in the Lincoln bedroom at a flat rate of $10,000 per night, including lunch at a local Jewish deli. Our reporters learned from aides close to Khomeini that he does not think he will be able to get a good night's sleep in the Lincoln bedroom because that is where Lincoln was assassinated. Ultimately, Khomeini declined Trump's invitation. At a press conference held in Tehran, Khomeini said, quote, "While the White House has all the trappings of great power, just like President Trump, in my lifetime I have committed many cruelties. Living under threat and constant fear is not worth all the power in the world," end quote. Khomeini informed those in attendance at the press conference that he will be making plans to abdicate his role as supreme leader, saying, quote, "They want regime change, they'll get regime change. But as the saying goes, the devil you know may be better than the devil you get." And now it's time to take another break and listen to an original instrumental composition by E. Dude X entitled Midnight Hammer, featuring Reverend Rusty Stubblefield on baritone saxophone, performing along with the inimitable Electric Love Orchestra. Stay tuned and we'll be back with another conflated conspiracy theory. Thank you, boys and girls, and remember the Electric Love Orchestra's complete catalog is available online at Bearberry Path Music. Our next story focuses on national holidays. Last week, in the context of the celebration of Juneteenth, a national holiday established in 2021 to recognize the end of slavery in the United States, President Trump said, and I quote, "America has too many non-working holidays, and it's costing our country billions of dollars." At the present time, there are a total of 11 permanent federal holidays celebrated in the United States as follows: New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, now also known as Indigenous Peoples Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, and last but not least, Christmas. In comparison with other countries, England celebrates only 9 national holidays, including Boxing Day. France also celebrates 9, including Bastille Day. Mexico celebrates 9, including the Day of the Dead. China celebrates 7, including Dragon Boat Festival Day. Canada celebrates 5, and only 4 national holidays are celebrated in Israel. Citing these comparisons, the Trump administration is currently evaluating several proposals that would eliminate most, if not all, non-working federal holidays. Trump has asked his advisors to take a look at consolidating holidays. Commenting on possible consolidation plans, Trump said, quote, "You've got your white holidays and your non-white holidays, and you've got holidays that commemorate death. If the members of my cabinet work together, I'm sure they can come up with a plan to consolidate them all." Trump indicated that he favors combining the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Juneteenth, Columbus Day, and Christmas into one holiday, which would be called, quote, People of Color Day. Cabinet members included Christmas in this category because, contrary to popular belief, Jesus was a non-white male. Trump also favors celebrating Memorial Day and Veterans Day on the same day. This holiday would be called Day of the Dead, borrowing from the name of the holiday celebrated in Mexico. Based on the remaining holidays, Trump said that he supported consolidating New Year's Day, Independence Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Labor Day into one holiday called White People's Day. Trump said, quote, "Come on now, if you're going to have a People of Color Day, you've got to have a White People's Day," end quote. And lastly, the one remaining holiday, President's Day, currently celebrated on the third Monday in February, would in the future be celebrated annually on June 14th and would be called Trump Day. According to Trump, no one knows who Washington and Lincoln were, and frankly, no one cares. The change in this holiday will be coinciding with the chiseling of President Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. If the consolidation plan can be worked out, Trump said, quote, "If we can get down to celebrating only 3 holidays, I may propose 2 additional new holidays. The first to commemorate the Capitol insurrection, which will be celebrated annually on January 6th and called Patriots' Day, and the second called Liberation Day, to be celebrated on April 2nd each year to commemorate the implementation of my tariff plan." Trump said, "I will make my decision in 2 weeks." In a related story, while not formally recognized as federal holidays, many LGBTQ organizations are advocating for the consolidation of Mother's Day and Father's Day into a single holiday called Parents' Day. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and left-wing Democratic Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, say that they will oppose such legislation if introduced. They said that they would favor a more inclusive holiday called Family Day, which would recognize brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, persons in civil unions, and family pets of all different species.
Well, we've reached our destination. We'll be back next week to pick you up for yet another journey to and from the Conflation Station.